Hey everybody, it's Jenny Butts with WordSpark. Happy New Year, and I hope you have great expectations for 2017. I hope that you will have lots of opportunities to use good communication for better understanding. Today we talk about some basic tips about speaking publicly. A lot of people have to do it and they're not always prepared or excited about it, so I have a couple of tips. But first I wanted to tell a little communication story that happened to me just this morning. I was out for my morning walk in the very brisk cold, and I was walking in a neighborhood that is very close to a wooded area where we have seen signs that say, be careful of the wildlife, and it has pictures of bears and cougars and things. So I was aware of that. But as I was walking in the very quiet chill of the morning, I heard one single, oh, and we'd heard coyotes before, but usually when I'm nestled in my bed late at night and it's very far away. But it was just the longest sound that held in the air. And then about 2 seconds later, again, and then another one joined, and then pretty soon there were lots of voices, all communicating something to each other. And I thought, the one coyote is saying to the others, hey, I found some breakfast, or come on, it's time for a family meeting, or whatever coyotes might say to each other. But it was effective communication. And it got me to thinking, all God's creatures communicate, some more effectively than others. And unbeknownst to the coyotes, they were also communicating to me. And the message was clear. Jenny, you should walk faster. So I started to walk very quickly. And if that helped my holiday pounds go away because I walked more briskly, so much the better, and even one more advantage to effective communication. So I just wanted to share that as kind of a fun story, that even when I wasn't looking for anything as an opportunity to tell a story, hey, coyotes were communicating right in our neighborhood. But we are going to be a little bit more intentional about using our words and our voices. I have been talking to several people in the last few weeks about communicating publicly for their jobs. I know a couple of people who, for their industries, would like to go and speak at larger groups to be able to talk about their businesses and then drum up more business. So whether it's a conference or Chamber of Commerce or some sort of association, to just let people know about their businesses. I also know of somebody who marked on my Facebook post yesterday that she is a volunteer with the Gideons and she has to give presentations. Sometimes you might be in front of a PTA or a neighborhood association. A lot of people don't have public speaking as part of their jobs, but they find themselves having to do it sometimes. Now, if you're a teacher or a professor or a professional speaker or MC or a variety of other things like corporate training, being in front of people and speaking publicly is your job. But for a lot of other people, they just find themselves doing it and they're not super excited about it and they don't feel very prepared. So for those people, I thought I would give quick tips, ABC. Now you can make ABC stand for anything in any industry, but for our purposes, we are going to do some ABCs of when you find yourself in front of a group making some sort of a presentation, either an announcement of 5 seconds or a presentation of 45 minutes. And the A stands for be audible. A lot of times you'll have the option to use a microphone or not use a microphone. I am a fan of using a microphone because then you're not making the audience work very hard to hear you. If the quality of the sound is good, then it's always advantageous. But if you're going to use a microphone, then you need to hold it to your mouth. I've seen people who kind of just hold it like this and it's more distracting. I have found over the years that either a wooden spoon or a hairbrush both work effectively to practice. And as both my parents will attest, I've used both of these since I was about 4 years old to pretend that I was on stage doing something. So if you want to practice with either of these very helpful props, you can do so, and you can practice holding it to your mouth. Because if you hold a microphone like this, not only can people not hear you, but they keep wondering, why is she not holding the spoon/microphone to her mouth? So if you're using a microphone, hold it to your mouth, and then you can gauge by looking at the room. If people are going like this, it's probably not a good sound system. Pull away. And if they're still leaning in, then maybe you need to hold it a little closer and speak a little bit more loudly. If you do not choose to use a microphone, or if one is not available, then be sure to project to the people in the back of the room, because the people in the front of the room can still hear you and you don't want to yell. But the point of either using a microphone or not using a microphone is that you don't want the audience to spend their energy working to hear what you're saying. You want them to spend their energy trying to engage in your message. Whether you're just announcing that the Finance Committee meets at 7 o'clock on Wednesday night, or if you have a long presentation, they need to be able to hear the information. Otherwise, what are you doing? So if you use a microphone, make sure you speak into it for the entirety of your message. And if you don't, be sure to project to the back of the room so people can hear you. A, be audible. B is be bold. And when I say be bold, I mean be bold both in how you occupy the physical space and in the message that you're saying. When you're introduced, for whatever reason, if you're announcing or presenting, occupy the space like you mean to be there. Stand up straight, fill your lungs with air so that you can project and be audible, and don't fidget. A lot of people will kind of lean or fidget and not know what to do with their hands, and they feel awkward. But trust me, you feel more awkward than you look when you just stand with your shoulders back and be in the space like you mean to be there. And the same is true of your message. If that Finance Committee meeting is at 7 o'clock on Wednesday night, then you tell them that Finance Committee meeting is at 7 o'clock. And if you have a long message, then be bold in what you're saying. Now, if we had the whole alphabet, we'd get to the R of the ABCs of speaking, which is research. Make sure if you're going to be bold that what you're saying is actually true. At the very least, maybe look at Wikipedia, maybe look at Snopes.com. But what you're saying, if it's true and you feel strongly about it, then say it boldly with conviction so that people will believe you. And they'll know if they have questions about the Finance Committee, they know the person to talk to because you've been bold. So be loud enough and also occupy the space, say what you have to say with conviction, be bold. And the third one, C, is to be clear. And again, this has to do with enunciating your words and pronouncing things so people can understand you and at a pace where people can understand you. It also means to be clear in your message. If you have, you'll know what I'm talking about if you've been to some sort of a presentation where maybe the speaker takes pride in the fact that they're just an impromptu speaker and they ramble and they tell stories and it's a lot of, and then, I don't even remember if it was Tuesday or Wednesday, and they're rambling all over the place and you're like, what is your point? So if you have a point, then make it and stick to it and make sure that every anecdote or joke or illustration that you use somehow supports that point. And if it doesn't, then save it for some other presentation. But be clear so people can walk away saying, I know what that person talked about and these were her 2 points, etc. So you want to be clear in saying your information, because if you've got a great sound system like I have here and people can hear you and you're standing boldly and speaking with conviction, but you're rambling all over the place or you're mumbling into the microphone, nobody can hear you, then what's the point? So you want to be sure that you're clear in speaking and that your message is also very, very clear. Basic tips for speaking publicly. There are lots of others, obviously, but if you remember to be audible and to be bold and occupy that space and speak with conviction and be clear, then it will take you far in being sure that your message gets to the intended receivers and that they hear it with what you intended. So I would love to hear your comments on these. If you have other letters of the alphabet that you would like to contribute in your experience, then I would love to hear those. Hi, Kirsten. Nice to see you too. So let me know if you have any comments about this, any more questions about this. I have not had tons of experience training people in these kinds of things, but I have seen lots of speakers. And I have done this a lot of times. And the clarity part for me comes from the very beginning to the very, very end. The first thing you say should be what you practice over and over and over. And the last thing should be the thing you practice over and over. Because whether I'm speaking at as an MC at an auction for hundreds of people, or if I'm actually presenting stuff that I have rehearsed over and over again, I will always practice the very beginning thing that I say 50 times. Because the first words out of our mouths are the ones that leave those strong first impressions. So as a person who does this a lot, I can vouch for these ABC things because I have practiced them, and I've watched more video of myself than most people could probably stomach if this isn't your job. So I can tell you that it's important to say the things you mean to say and be very intentional. So I will practice over and over. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jenny Butts, and I'll be your mistress of ceremonies this evening. Welcome. Even if it's just that much, because I want it to be clear and let everyone know, oh, someone's in charge of this evening. Someone knows what he or she is talking about. So A, B, C. Be audible, be bold, and be clear about your message. And then you will have the confidence to relax in front of a group. And you might even want to practice holding that wooden spoon so you know exactly where the microphone goes. All right, so that is your speaking tip for the new year. I hope it was helpful. Let me know if it was. Please give a comment, share the video if you think that there are some people who might find these tips helpful. And I will think of some other helpful tips so that you can communicate well. I want to remind everybody again, if you're in the Seattle age, that I will be speaking on effective communication at the Snoqualmie Women in Business Lunch on January 18th. And that is going to be in Snoqualmie, Washington. So if you are in the area and want to join a bunch of other women who have said at the beginning of the year, communication is important and I'd like to improve, and you can kind of discuss these things, then come and join us at the lunch on Wednesday, January 18th in Snoqualmie, Washington. And if I don't see you there, I hope to see you here again on Facebook. And we will keep practicing that good communication for better understanding. All right, Happy New Year and have a great week, everybody.